Welcome to another Maine SBDC webinar. My name is Kelsey Reardon, and I am with the Maine State Office, hosted by USM. And today we are joined with Maine SBDC at NMDC Business Advisor and Center Director Brandon McDonald. I'm slowly learning the full titles, all those acronyms. So if you're not familiar, we are the Maine Small Business Development Centers, and we are here to help the small businesses of Maine with just about anything you could possibly need. We are a federally funded program, so it is no cost to you, and it is all confidential. And if we cannot answer a question, we can find someone who can. So we are happy to help. There's no too small question. There's no stupid questions. We're here for all of it. And we have Brandon with us today to go over changes to 1099 forms. So if you've ever used like a third-party payment system or you were a vendor for someone else, you may have been issued a 1099 tax form, and there are some changes occurring to all of that. So we want to make sure that you are up to date. Keep your business or side hustle in alignment with the rules, so to speak. So we'll be going over all of that. We are recording today's session, so that will be published on our YouTube channel. And I'll be sending a follow-up email later today that'll have the links and the slides and any other resources we cover. So you'll have access to all of that, as well as all of our contact information. So if you're not set up with a business advisor, it'll be easy to click through. If you have a very specific branding question, you can click right through to him. If you have any questions at all, you can respond to any of those emails and it will end up in the right place. But today we'll ask you to use the chat feature while we're together to submit any questions. Feel free to introduce yourself. Maybe let us know what payment system you are currently using. Is it PayPal, Venmo? Is there a specific platform that you're using it on? Maybe you are on Etsy or eBay. We'd love to hear specifically what are you working with, so we may be able to help answer any specific issues or questions around that. I think that I hit everything, but just in case, I'll let Brandon introduce himself and take it away.
Thanks, Kelsey. So as Kelsey said, I'm Brandon McDonald. I'm really excited to share some of the 1099K changes, and I shouldn't be excited to share tax changes. There's nothing fun about it, but it is going to represent an exciting change for individuals to start looking into, is it time for me to get into business ownership at this point? I'm the Center Director, Business Advisor for SBDC at NMDC. In 2015, so for those from Southern Maine, I actually worked out of Portland. I was working with the Cataphonic Directive. We used to do things through Friends of Congress Square Park, and we're big on bringing up the music scene down there. So we've worked a lot with 1099, contractors, musicians, artists. So we loved working with our partners in that kind of side gig, side hustle world. The only thing I got to preface everything with, I am not an accountant. I can't share accounting advice. If you want, any true to life accounting advice, we're going to share scenarios here, but any of that really does have to go through your licensed tax prep and accountant. Because at the end of the day, we're just business advisors, and I'd like to push that off to the people who know your situation the best, and that's going to be your tax prep. So what happened? In 2021, Congress shifted how the 1099K worked. So in previous years, a 1099K would focus on a contractor making about $20,000 over a calendar year. But now with some of the changes that have gone through, it's going to be sent on only $600 in total sales over that calendar year, which means on a future tax year, so anything that you're going to be doing through 22, on your next tax year, you're going to be issued a 1099K, and you're going to have to figure out, what am I going to do with this? So we're going to talk a little bit about some of the scenarios and how you can work through what that 1099K means. So first off, what is the form? What does it look like? If you've never seen a Form 1099 before, it's just a tax document. It notes that you had some kind of additional income, supplemental income outside of a traditional W-2, right? A 1099K is a very specific version or variant of that 1099 that's going to be used for payment processor transactions. That's going to be your Square, your PayPal, your any kind of payment processor you're working with, or third-party networks, which does include if you're renting out through a Airbnb or Vrbo. Again, as long as it adds up to $600 in a calendar year, you're gonna likely receive a Form 1099K. So let's talk about who this is gonna impact. Again, you're gonna have at least $600 in online sales or payment processor sales through the year. So that also counts if you've got one of those little Square readers that plugs in your phone or a POS system, that if that goes above $600, you're gonna likely get a 1099K on that income. If the sales were not to friends and family, and we'll talk about that a little bit further. And if you're not selling at a profit, if you are, putting a lot into materials and you're just selling as a hobby because you want to get some art out or clothes out, or you're just selling, again, to friends and family, this probably will not impact you, and we'll talk a little bit more about it. So some of the questions that we're seeing the most. I only average $50 in sales a month. I only make 2 sales on my Etsy a month. That's all I do over the year. You got to remember that $600 is that aggregate total over the calendar year. So if you're getting $600 over that year, you will likely get that 1099K. So my business only sells as a hobby or to my friends and family. So some payment processors actually have an override function that will override the 1099K filing. And that is if you're on something like PayPal, where you explicitly only accept transactions from your friends and family as a friends and family transaction. If you're not, selling things as a business, or you're not selling them at a profit, but instead, taking a loss and you're just selling, $5 stickers or shirts, really that falls a lot more into the hobby, friends and family side of things. If you know you're not ready to start a business and you want to continue doing that through family or friends, it's going to stay a hobby, and you should be ensuring that those transactions, especially if they're at a loss, are going through as friends and family transactions. The problem is I would not do this outside of your friends and family, right? Any sales that you make outside of that lose any seller protections that you're going to have. So I would never advise on operating your business as a friends and family business to anyone outside of those realms, because again, you lose your seller protections and you risk kind of being on the edge of legality, right? Because you're going to be looking at sales tax issues. So when it comes to staying on the right side of the law, I would not go outside friends and family if you're selling outside of friends and family. And then finally, you're losing money on what you sell. So the 1099K income can be offset. So there is actually a section that will allow you to offset that income. I can't go a whole lot into it today, but just know that you will be able to offset 1099K additional income on your own personal tax return without having to start a business. You'll do this by noting hobby expenses, because you're likely going to stay a hobby if you're not ready to start a business. This really only applies if you haven't began a Schedule C business or some kind of business tax return. So on the flip side, maybe you want to start your business, right? The side hustle idea is the best way you're going to find out, the proof of concept. I know my photography business works well with my friends and family. I know my friends and family love my pins or my shirts or my artwork. So have you determined that your market warrants a need? Perfect. If that's a yes, then is it time to create a business plan? If yes, then SBDC is the place to be. And we'll talk about that a little later. Are you already remitting sales tax in some shape, way, or form? At this point, almost everyone on Etsy, eBay, Amazon, a lot of third-party payment processors, Shopify, you're already remitting sales tax in some way. It's already charged to the buyer at the time of sale. And are you looking to take a tax deduction? Are you putting some money into your business? Are you buying pieces of equipment and you're still staying profitable? Maybe it's time to look into how you can bring that income down so that your net's a little bit lower and you're not receiving such a hefty tax burden on the total income that you bring in through that business. So this gets very overwhelming. So I'm going to try to highlight where I can, right? So the profit or loss from business form is on the left. And I want to talk about this simplified Schedule C concept. And this is something your accountant or tax prep is going to help you with. If you only have $2,000 in gross receipts or sales, I hope this is highlighting when I'm doing this. So if you have $2,000 in gross receipts and sales, maybe in a perfect world, you're deducting 1,000 of that is the cost to make that thing, that piece of art, whatever you're working on. You'll have your gross income, and then maybe you're advertising on Facebook. Maybe you have to pay $100 to get into a craft fair, an art show, anything like that. Maybe you have bought a tablet and you're depreciating something. You've got some supplies that you're working with. At the end of the day, that $2,000 actually becomes $600 after you focus on the fact that your expenses factor into what your net profit looks like. Now we go to the 1040. And on the 1040 side, we have our W-2 income, that $10,000 on line 1. Well, depending how we operated our business, if we don't operate it as a Schedule C, we will have a $2,000 income, a 1099K, we have not deducted, and our income will actually be $12,000. Now on the green, if we end up deducting, that income is actually only $600, and our total income would be about $1,400 lower. Now, for some, this doesn't change their tax burden, but for others, it will. And there's a couple of situations we're going to talk about where you have to be really cognizant of how your adjusted income turns out. So really, we want to make sure that you understand what you need to get your business going, right? I just want to take a moment to note that Maine SBDC, we provide free confidential business advising to those just like you looking to grow, open up. If any of this applies to you where you're having the idea of it's time to take my 1099K and move it into a bigger business, to move it into an actual business, this is the right time to look into it, because again, at the end of the year, whether you are or are not a hobby, you're going to receive a 1099K. If your business is at all profitable, the IRS will regard it as some form of a business as long as it's profitable. Those that are not profitable will have to stay a hobby under the IRS's tax law. That's the only thing we can share on the IRS's side of things, because again, you have to be working with an accountant to understand your individual situation. Now, going back very quickly to the situations of those who are going to be impacted the most by this. We go back to talking about your accountant should look into your tax bracket. That's going to be where your 1040 is going to play the most into what your household situation is. We see a lot. We've worked in, personally, I've worked in the social service field before, and almost everything involving social service, whether it's a main care insurance, Medicare, any kind of social service opportunity, you have a adjusted gross income limit you have to be at. So for some people, they might be just $1,000 or $2,000 away from their limit. That $2,000 you get on a Schedule 1099K will make you ineligible for those programs. So just being cognizant of what the 1099K income is going to do to your adjusted gross income. And if that applies to you, it's a good time to start looking at your 1040 and figuring out how much leeway do you have for any of those, whether it's a tax bracket change, a social service security net, or anything else that would take a hit on your adjusted gross income. So going back forward, so we wanted this to be kind of a short session on the 1099K changes. I have some time to talk about if you have a specific situation. I want to make sure that you get the answer you need on that specific situation. And again, we have some time here to answer any questions that you're going to have on the 1099K changes. Again, I don't want to delve too much into what an accountant is going to be able to share with you, other than just putting it on your radar that this change is coming and you will likely receive those 1099Ks on anything past $600 in income. So if we can help you in any way feel more confident with getting that 1099K taken care of, or just understanding what this all means for you if you haven't already started a business, feel free to put your questions in chat and we're happy to talk to you from there. Or alternatively, and I did not put it on here, but I will put it in the chat, I will give out my email as well, and I'd love to invite anyone with individual questions that they don't feel as comfortable putting into the chat. You can email it out to us, and we'd be happy to, again, all of our work is confidential, so we'd be happy to advise up to the limit of, again, where we have to pass it off to that accountant. So with that being said, we'd be happy to take questions, and I'm going to stop sharing for now.
Awesome. Well, we have a couple questions coming in. So Taryn's asking, on Venmo, PayPal, is there a best way to label items or to ask friends and families to label them specifically? Venmo makes you label it before it goes through.
Yeah, so PayPal usually, I believe there's like a note or memo section, so you're going to have a way to note on PayPal. Venmo, you're right, you are going to have some labeling before it goes through. Etsy, I believe there's going to be no way for you to differentiate, a friends and family transaction on a Shopify or an Etsy or eBay for that matter. Those three are the big ones that come to mind. Airbnb and Vrbo, that friends and family thing just doesn't apply there, right? So if you're working directly through them, you're likely not going to find a friends and family exemption. That continuing, it seems like the question is, what is a good way to not make it look like a service for them? Is there any loopholes? Yeah, so a good way to not make it look like a service versus friends and family. I mean, again, okay, so the main advice I'm going to give you today is that if you are taking and doing things at a craft fair and you know that you're not making enough money to the point where it's a profitable business, at that point you should be doing as much as possible through a PayPal or if you can do a friends and family through Venmo, if they've cleared you to do it, then I would go through those mediums, and that way you can kind of get outside the 1099K. But at the same time, just be cognizant of the fact that if you're doing a large volume of transactions through 1099K, you've got the Maine state tax, bureau. They can be looking into, whether you're trying to scrape away from sales tax or any other taxable obligations. So again, I really want to reiterate that friends and family was made just for friends and family with small hobbyist businesses. So if you're selling to friends and family or at very, very small, small town craft fairs where you all know each other, that's okay. But when you start going outside of it and you go down to Portland and you're doing the expo shows or anything like that, you really got to start looking at, it's time to start calling it a business if you're going to make that volume of sales. Especially the IRS's main idea is it's profitable. If it's not profitable, then we got to look at it as a hobby. And again, we can deduct those expenses on the back end through an accountant. But really, the best way to keep it friends and family is to stay friends and family, unfortunately. I did see Susan's up above. So Susan, the processors should automatically generate a 1099K. So it's going to be generated on Etsy's, Airbnb, Shopify. All those fronts are going to be generating a 1099K on their own. It's going to be automated at this point. That was a congressional change. So your client should be getting a 1099K the same way they'd get any other 1099s through the end of the tax year.
And so building off of that, similarly, we actually have a high school teacher who helps teach taxes, which I would have either appreciated more education of, or I wish that maybe I had been paying closer attention when I did get it. So Godspeed to you, high school teachers, doing that hard work. But she's wondering, when will the students receive the 1099K and when won't they? And I'm guessing most of them are under 18, but I don't think that there's a difference.
Yeah. So some of these websites have their own terms and conditions, right? So if they're under 18, my assumption is unless they accidentally subtracted 10 from their birth year, their parents would have to be the ones to sign up on this. So what would happen is their parents might receive a 1099 if the information was done under them because they were a minor. So what would happen at that point is it may fall under the parents' income. And again, at that point, you kind of sit in a tricky situation of how do you show and again, it's definitely possible. Definitely, we see it all the time. but you have to figure out if it's the right time for your minor to be getting into being a business or to keep it a hobby as a proof of concept. So again, it all boils down to that are you making money? Are you making enough money? And what is enough money, right? So enough money just essentially means that in the eyes of the IRS, profitable. That could be $1 in profit. You could be allowed to start a business. Are you expected to? Not necessarily. And that's where it kind of falls into, again, we don't know everyone's personal situations, and I don't want to talk about everyone's personal situations in a group setting. So it really does fall on your accountant to determine, this is my adjusted gross income or my household income. Am I okay? Am I going to get hit with a tax burden if I take this as income, or should I be, claiming my business expenses with it?
Yeah, that I don't know how you teach that to kids. A bunch of adults are all in this room, and we're doing our best to wrap our heads around it. So thanks for explaining that. I don't see any other questions, but if anyone has anything, feel free to plug them in there. Brandon's one of those kind of sick people that like lights up when he starts talking about numbers and government forms, which like it takes all types. And so we are sure that you are not starting a small business because you love to fill out forms. We would guess that is not even on your top 10 list. So it's nice when the business advisors can use something that they're passionate about to help your business so that you can be passionate about the thing that you are actually passionate about. So I will be sending out all of my contact information. Oh, cool. So yeah, the teacher reached out and I'll connect you to separately offline. But yes, so feel free to reach out to any email that you've gotten from me, including the one that will go out later with all of the slides and the recording link and all of that contact information again. So we can get you set up with a business advisor or just moving through the next step of getting your business set up.
Thank you, everyone.
Actually, real quick, we got one. Yeah, we love it.
So, Pamela, so you have a business in which you do 1099 as in you've received a 1099 at this point with low 600s. How does this affect you in So technically this law does not go into effect until the 22 tax year. Yes. So the tax year, what's going to happen is essentially, have you done your taxes up to this point, Pamela?
Now I'm muted. Pamela, feel free to unmute yourself if you're interested in digging deeper.
All right, I'll try. I have laryngitis on top of everything else.
Oh no.
If you can understand me.
You sound good.
All right, I have an LLC. I often make more than 600, but it's seldom that I make more than 2,000. We have a tax accountant. We have done 1099s, but I'm curious. I don't even know how to ask the question. It's like putting it in reverse. So I say I've been between 600 and 2,000 for the last however many years, 4 or 5 years. Now that this $600 is in there, as a ceiling or a, I don't know, benchmark, how is that going to apply to people like myself in terms of remaining a business? Or I don't want to be designated as a hobby. My accountant and I have already gone through that. We're not doing that.
Yep. So I don't think you're going to be forced to label yourself as a hobby if you make less than 600, right? So this congressional change really was just, so their idea of it was to fight money laundering. So they had to bring down that $20,000 limit on 1099s to a $600 limit, right? So your business could still make $100, and as long as it was profitable, again, the IRS has their magic rule of 3 years of profitable out of every 5 years. So as long as you were making a profit in 3 out of those 5 years, usually the IRS is okay with that. So again, $600 is not the magic number to own a business, but it is the magic number to receive a 1099 from one of these online payment processors in the business.
So, but the thing is, when you throw in the word profit, all right, it's not uncommon for those of us in these small businesses to run in the red. And so the only way I can get out of this profit thing when I don't really make a profit is to have my expenses equal to or be less than what I make, even though they may have exceeded. My costs may have exceeded what I earned, which is another fabrication.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly. So really all that happens, and again, we've seen, it depends if the IRS wants to, and again, I'm making big assumptions. It depends if the IRS wants to focus on you, right? We'll see hobby businesses that, I mean, really they should be classified as a hobby, but they stay a business. And they can run in the red for a couple of years, 4 years, 5 years. It just all depends on when the IRS sends you the letter explaining that they're going to move you into a hobby classification. That's the challenge. I wish I wrote tax law and I could change some of that, but unfortunately that lies a lot more with the IRS and when or if they ever choose to target you for that. And they may not. Sometimes they may not. That's just the law they write out.
So if I understand what you just said, and I realize you have your caveat, I'm not an accountant, and I do have a really good accountant, but the IRS could force me to be a hobby if I'm not showing the kind of profit they want to be shown inside of whatever the time frame is.
Yeah, so they like to see, and what I'll do, Pamela, if you're comfortable maybe directly messaging either me or Kelsey, I can send you kind of a short form version of the IRS's guidelines on it, but basically it outlines that should there be a net loss in the magic number in their mind is 3 out of the past 5 years, they reserve the right to classify your business as a hobby. But again, they have to contact you and tell you that. So you're not in the wrong until the IRS contacts you and tells you otherwise, essentially.
Okay, Brandon, you know me, even though you don't know it. I don't sound like
I recognize your name, and I think I've seen you at a craft fair once or twice. So
yeah, and I live over the road from NMDC. I'm in Presque Isle.
Yeah.
So I know I have no problem sharing what you already know. But I'll contact the office or something. I just want to get this straight for my own peace of mind.
Sure. Yeah, and I'd be happy to connect. Let's connect, anytime. Shoot me an email or give me a call and we can connect separately on that. And I'd be happy to chat. My expectation is if you have an accountant, they're kind of well versed on it too. And if they've told you not to worry at this point, I would continue going the path of not worrying until
he did not say don't worry.
Gotcha.
He said we need to make sure we're on this.
Okay. Let's connect outside this, and I'd be happy to.
Yeah, we'll do.
Great. Yeah, I can connect. Pamela and Patricia also would like to be in contact with you, Brandon. So I'll make all those connections. Sure. And then one last question. It seems like Susan's saying, so if a business pays another business via PayPal, then PayPal will issue it, or is it the IRS?
Wow, that is an incredible question, Susan. So my expectation is it's going to come through a 1099-K because PayPal is going to be on an automated system for this. It is going to be automated. So I guess the more I sit down and think about it, you will see what 1099s are sent out, Susan. Essentially, on the business's end, they will see the 1099s that are sent out, so there won't be a duplicate 1099 situation going on.
Yeah, if you don't mind, my concern is that as their bookkeeper, some of my businesses, I assist them in issuing the 1099 NECs. And I just want to make sure that I'm not issuing a 1099 NEC for something that a 1099K is also being issued for. So that's you know, where my question kind of derives from. So
Yeah.
so we're not doing it because one of my clients, as you know, does the Verbo and the Airbnb, and you know, has, you know, pays through Venmo for some things to, you know, independent contractors. So I'm like, who issues that?
Yeah, this is going to get, for businesses like that, this is going to be very confusing very quickly, because my assumption is you're still going to have a 1099 NEC on different transactions, probably those outside of Airbnb and Verbo.
Mhm.
So it's going to be a challenge in itself to kind of keep the Airbnb, those third, they call it any third party payment processing transactions, those got to be separated out from anything else that you're going to be issuing those 1099 NECs on. So that's
Right, so those will
expectation
probably
right now.
be cash and check. Will
Yes.
end up going through the NEC and
Yep.
then the rest. Okay. Thank you.
Awesome. I'm so glad that you guys piped in with those extra questions.
Yes, that's a really good question too. I'm so now worried about the absolute headache that's going to go through businesses for that. So hopefully we can get PayPal to put something out on that too. This really needs to spread pretty far for questions just like that, Susan.
So like we said, it helps when you guys ask the questions. You never know who else has that same question. So well done, everyone. I think that is everything. But yell if you want us to stick around. Otherwise, thank you very much for joining us. Thank you, Brandon, as always. We so appreciate your expertise on these types of topics. So keep an eye out for my follow-up email, and we'll see you all at the next one.
Thank you all. Take care.